And we're sitting there not knowing what's our fate. We have no house, we have no father, what would we do?
Sunil Tulsiani,
Founder of Private Investment Club.
he began his journey in the slums of Delhi and is now ending up working with some of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world.
Congratulates Sunil for helping more and more people achieve financial freedom and spreading positivity throughout the world.
Sunil, thank you so much for accepting our invitation and be our guest on the podcast. You have been a best-selling author and entrepreneur. You have been a mentor to few of the most successful entrepreneurs, thought leaders of our time.
God wants you to be rich, because if you're not rich, you can't help. Remember, we got a notice that said, it's illegal and we're going to send people to demolish your house. I was like 8. I remember taking stuff out and we laid it on the streets outside of our home. And we were just sitting, waiting for the house to be demolished, not knowing where we're going to go. One of the things that I realized as a young child is that the society, the religious leaders, family members, parents, they had love-hate relationship with money. A lot of scarcity mindset. And they used to tell me that rich people are greedy, bad. Poor people are better people. They're nicer people. I was looking at every event that was happening. I would go to business events, franchise shows, real estate shows, anything where they can make money shows. And one day I opened up a newspaper and a guy named Robert Allen, he's a real estate guru. He said, buy properties or invest in real estate, no money down. And I thought, what kind of stupid thing is that? And somehow I went to his event, and in my first time in my life, I paid $5,000 for a 3-day event. When I was talking to Abhishek Bachchan, and he said we were having lunch together, and Abhishek Bachchan said, a lot of people don't know that most of our wealth, Bachchan's family, is in real estate. 80% of the millionaires, self-made millionaires and multimillionaires come from real estate, whether it's full-time or part-time.
Such a pleasure having you here, Sunil. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation and be our guest on the podcast, The xMonks Drive.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Sunil, you have been a best-selling author. You've been an entrepreneur. You have been a magnet who's been able to attract the right kind of people in your life. You have been a mentor to few of the most successful entrepreneurs, thought leaders of our times. But I'm sure this has not been like this always.
Of course.
Was there a time when you wondered if you would be able to get those two ends meet in your life at all?
You know, growing up, being born in a small place called Katni in Madhya Pradesh in India. Then moving to Delhi, we used to live as a paying guest at other people's homes initially when we were in India, in Delhi. And so they had a 2-bedroom apartment. We would have one room to 5 of us. And that one room was our kitchen, that was a living room, that was a bedroom, everything. And then we would share the one bathroom with the other 5 or 10 people in that one 2-bedroom apartment. So that's how we lived, and a lot of times I remember moving from one place to others, because after 3 or 4 months there was always a fight, and usually it was fight in regards to kitchen, or if you're cooking something that too much smoke was coming out, or the bathroom. You know, whose kids go first, the landlord or yours? And so that fight. So my father was a factory man, and he said one day, I want to have my own house. And we bought a land in a place called Tughalkabad in the 70s, mid-70s. Tughalkabad was like outskirts, middle of nowhere, almost. And we built a house, and we had no toilets, we had no electricity, we had no water, no running water. So every day in the morning, we would go to the hills for our bathroom. Every evening when father came, we would go to some well to get the water, and electricity was our candle or lanterns. That's how we lived in Delhi, in India. So no, I am what I have become. If you have told me in the past, in millions of years, I would not believe it, that I would become who I become. Because I really thought you have to be extremely talented. Your IQ has to be high. You have to be connected to royalties, or some rich uncle, or something has to be there. Godfather. Yeah, something like that. I thought I was just gonna grow up, get a good job, get married, have a couple of kids, and then come home, take care of them, one day retire, and that's it.
That's it, yeah. That's it. Yeah. And you know, once you look back, Sunil, I'm just wondering, is there any situation that you can still recall that brings sadness to you?
One of the things that I realized as a young child is that the society, the religious leaders, family members, parents, they had love-hate relationship with money. And so they would say something like, I'm going to work hard, you're going to make money. See, they didn't want me to become a doctor because they want me to serve people. They want me to become a doctor so I can make lots of money from it. But on the other hand, they would say money's bad. Lalchi nahi bano. पाँव उतने फैलाओ जितनी चादर है, बूंद बूंद से समुद्र बनता है, things like that. A lot of scarcity mindset. And they used to tell me that rich people are greedy, bad, and they stomp on the heads of poor people to become rich. Poor people are better people. They're nicer people.
They have their conscience in the right place. They have the heart in the right place.
Yeah. And then we would take that story and we would find evidence for that story. That, when we meet some poor person, we'd say, oh, what a beautiful person. Yeah. And then when we meet a rich person, if the rich person did 100 things better, but one thing bad, we only remember one thing. I remember we were walking and the rich person drove his car and then splashed the water. That's all we remember. We didn't remember that he worked hard, he got a nice car, maybe he served a lot of people. All we remembered him, that arrogant person, maybe he didn't even know that he did that, okay? Maybe we were walking too close to the road, I don't know. But in those days, we just said, see, this is how rich people are. So it was a conflict in my mind. Do I become rich or not? Because if I become rich, then I'm bad. And that's the conflict that I remember that my father put me into. I remember he would come home and we would have an apple and we would cut 5 pieces of apple and we would fight which was the biggest apple piece. Right? That apple was a treat for us. My father worked really hard, built that house, and I remember maybe 2 years, we were so happy. We started a house, even though we didn't have all the amenities. The first time in my life, my father, we felt like we were free to some degree. And then government came, and then they drew a fence, and they said, anybody on this side of the fence is legal. Anything on the other side is illegal. And we were literally 2 houses from that fence into the illegal zone. What had happened was my father had bought a land from somebody who sold it to many people, and we just happened to be the first one to build it. And the government said he wasn't even allowed to sell those houses. So there was 200 houses being built in that colony. 80% were fine. 20% that we got into was not fine. So I remember we got a notice that said, it's illegal, and we're going to send our people to demolish your house. It was biggest thing in the world that, that was the only thing that we had at that time. We didn't have bank balance. When we got that notice, I remember we thought first this is a joke. Then my parents, as the time came closer, I can see them getting worried. And I remember on the day of, all the men went to some area to fight or protest or something like that. And we could see house number 1 got demolished, house number 2 got demolished. And they would only demolish halfway and leave because you can't live in a half house. And now they said you have 2 choices. Leave your stuff inside and we will crush the house with your stuff inside, or take it out on the streets. I remember, Gaurav, taking stuff as a young kid, and I have a sister who was younger to me, my brother who was younger to me, and I remember taking stuff out and we laid it on the streets outside of our home, and we were just sitting, waiting for the house to be demolished, not knowing where we're going to go. And the sad part was, my father was not there, meaning he was there, but we thought he was not there. Why? He went to protest, and what the police did was they took all the men into their bus or whatever, and they put them in jail that day, so then we can't cause any problems. There was no phones, there was no connections, so we have no idea where father went. Nobody knows, and mother is crying, and we were standing there, sitting there on the streets, and I looked at my mother. She had tears in her eyes. I had tears in my eyes, and we were fighting with those men. There was like 6 or 7 men with, some tools to, and they went in to make sure nobody was in, and we couldn't take out everything, so they started smashing, and then half of the house on the top was gone, the roof and everything's gone, and left. And now it's like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 5 p.m. Father's not there. 3 young children. I was like 8, so my sister would have been 5, my brother would have been 3 or something like that. And we're sitting there, not knowing what's our fate. We have no house, we have no father, what would we do, and all that. To me, that was probably the toughest thing that I remembered, that I don't want people to go through, you know. And all I remember was people who had money, they were able to find places faster than people who didn't have the money.
And there was nobody out there to support you at that point in time.
No, because they were also in the same situation.
Struggling with the same. And I'm not surprised that today you have a mission that you would like to make hundreds and hundreds of millionaires.
Yes. The interesting part is, the cycle back is, I go become a police officer, but what do I get back into? Real estate.
Yeah.
What do I get into real estate? Making people wealthy through real estate, through entrepreneurship, to coaching, and taking them to the next level. Because that idea, when people say money's not important, I'm going to defer. I'm going to say that one day have so much money and then make a decision.
As Shah Rukh Khan says, you know, he often quotes that first have enough and more money in your pocket and then become a philosopher.
A lot of people who actually say that money's not important, either they have none, or they have so much that money's not important to them.
Or they have some deep belief that they cannot earn money.
That's it. So, but then they're poor.
Yeah.
Then they're poor.
Yeah.
So people who are poor, we have to make a story to suggest that whatever we're doing is correct. And so we pick a thesis, and then we bring evidence for that thesis. So if I don't have lots of money and I don't want to look like a failure, I will bring evidence to show that poor people are great. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with being poor at all.
And being rich or being poor has got nothing to do with what amount of money you have in your pocket.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. But if you say to me that I want 1 lakh rupees, or if this is going, when this is going to international, somebody says I want like $5,000 a month, okay? And you're happy with that, and that's all you want.
You are healthy and wealthy, and you are rich.
And you're financially free.
Yeah.
If you say that you want to make 1 crore a month, and somebody in the US says I want $1 million a month, and you don't get that, then you're not rich.
Yeah, then you're poor.
Then you're poor.
Yeah. Then it has to do with your relationship with money, your relationship with wealth.
Also, it has to do with the fact that you came to this planet, extension of God. How much impact do you want to make for the world?
Yeah.
If you are earning $10,000, then on an average, you're giving $10,000 worth of value to the world. If somebody is making 1 crore a month, they're giving 1 crore worth of value or more per month to the world.
You can only give to the world what you already have. Otherwise, you cannot pour from an empty tumbler, as they say, right? Now, help me understand, going back to when you were 8, standing outside of your house when the house is getting demolished. From there, you joined law enforcement services, right? You joined police force.
Yes.
What's the connecting bridge there?
Well, you know, after we came back out of that misery, I still remember that day, though. When I go back in my eyes, I can see us, this a dirt road, a small dirt road, and our stuff being laid around. Mother, who was supposed to be our hero to a young kid, she became a victim, and she started to cry because she couldn't do anything. And more importantly, she's probably looking for her husband, who is not there. And I'm looking for my father. And the young siblings are looking up to us, like, what are we going to do? And I remember after they broke the house, that's when it hit us. We have no house. Where are we going to go? And we're sitting there on the streets, literally with our stuff outside, with, you know, some dirt, dogs walking around, cats running around, and then other people, we can hear people crying as well. That was the toughest part, I remember. And then with our own hands for the next year or so, we took bricks and we started building the house ourselves, actually. You know, my father will say, go do this, take the brick, put some, cement on it, and he would put it on, and we built it together. We bought somebody to help us do the roof, but we did it ourselves again. We brought it back, and we didn't move. And then later on, it became, okay, it's legal. They made it legal. So that happened around in the late 70s. And 81 is my uncle used to live in Toronto, and he sponsored my father. And they were short of pattern makers in Toronto. My father was a pattern maker in Delhi, which had very little value in Delhi, but had a huge value in Toronto because they were not making enough pattern makers. So my father, we went to Canada in 1981, and I remember dreaming, because my uncle used to come to our home. They used to wear good clothes. They used to look rich. They used to, take us to air conditioning movie theaters. We never used to go to air conditioning.
Going with them to a restaurant, good restaurant, hotel.
Yeah. Anything was chocolate. Growing up, I hadn't had chocolate until my uncle gave it to me. I didn't know what chocolate was. I thought it was a rich person's magic, stuff. So I remember looking at him, and then I remember watching Bollywood movies where rich people had big houses, big cars, lots of people work for them, and all that stuff. So my vision was that my uncle is probably like that, and he acted, and their family, according to us, anyways, they acted right. And then somebody said to me, in Toronto, in Canada, the payments are paved with gold. And as a young child, I actually thought they meant it was paved with gold. It's not figuratively. I thought it was physically. As I know that I was going to Canada, I would dream. I was dreaming that one day at midnight or every night, I'm going to go out midnight when nobody's looking. I'm going to take a chisel and a hammer and chisel out a little bit of a gold. Nobody would know. And I take that gold, and then next day I'll do the same thing. I remember landing in Toronto, and I realized my uncle came in a very old station wagon vehicle. We went to an apartment building, and I thought, wow, my uncle owns the whole building. But I realized he was renting in that one building, 2-bedroom apartment, and he didn't have any, servants. He didn't have lots of cars. He didn't have all that. He was a factoryman over there. But he was better off being a factoryman over there than here. That's basically the idea. So I remember my dreams kind of were torn, because in Toronto, just like Delhi, Mumbai, and other places, there are good areas. They're middle class areas, and then there's sort of slums or bad areas as well. So we were kind of in the sort of the slums of Toronto, because it's cheaper. All the immigrants go there, and 81 when we got there, it's just like it's a cheap place to rent. So that's how, when I went there, my dreams of like, okay, but we had toilets, we had food, we had.
More than one apple.
Yes, fruits were no more luxury, And I remember, being very excited about that. But then 81 was also challenging. 83, 84, it was very challenging. Why? Indians were not even second, third, maybe they were like fifth class, maybe, if anything. They were not even seen as a real human beings. And what happened was, to be called names, to be seen as somebody who's dirty, uneducated, even if you were, people calling names. The one word they used was a word called Paki. And Paki word was supposed to be from Pakistan, but Paki was for anybody who looked brown. And Paki was not just because of the name of country, it was basically what it meant. It's like a swear word, basically. You're dirty, you're uneducated, you don't speak English, and you don't know what you're doing.
Looking down at someone.
Yeah, and then go back to your country. Why are you here? And then you can only clean, you can only do labor work, you can only do this kind of work. That's basically what they went. And so going into school, bullying was worse than here. Not being able to speak a word of English was tough. And then they're trying to teach me French. Well, I can't even speak English, so you're going to teach French. And then I say, well, what does this mean? They tell me in English, but then I say, well, what does that mean in English? So that was a tough time. But what happened was, amazingly, my uncle came to me when I was about 15 years old, and he said, you should be a police officer. Because he realized I was not a good student. Because my father wanted me to become doctor, lawyer, or engineer. And then if you're nalayak, then maybe government job.
If you're not good for anything, go and join the government job. Okay.
And if you're not in science, then you're not smart, right? And I didn't like science. I didn't like school. I didn't like anything. However, later on in my life, I realized it's not that I didn't like the school. I just didn't like what they were teaching in school. Because I remember in my later years when I became a police officer, I took many courses that I wanted to take that I didn't have to take, but I wanted to improve me.
You had that interest in that.
Yeah. So that's what the whole point here is. I don't care what came in what century and how many wives he had and what are the names of those wives and what year did he conquer and how many people died. I don't really care. I don't really care to memorize those things. So I remember my uncle came to me and when I was 15, he said, you should be a police officer. And I didn't have a good experience with police in Delhi. I didn't have a good experience with them. I said, no, I don't want to be. And he said, well, you should do this. And then he explained to me, in Canada, police officer was somebody who stand out, who was expected a higher standard of humility, higher standard of way of doing things, being honest, loyal, protective.
And that shifted your perspective of police.
Yes, and then when I walked around, I looked at the police officers. They were polite. They were happy. Gentle, fair. Okay, they were not rude. Okay, plus when I asked them something, they would go, you can go there, turn right, and in fact, why don't you come with me? I'm like, oh, he has a time to do that. So what I'm saying to you is, my idea of police shifted, and I knew at that moment that that's the only thing. So I made a decision that the only thing I'll be is a police officer in Toronto. There was no other job was for me. There was nothing else. Day, night, I dreamed, I visualized. I didn't know what the word visualize meant. I made movie in my mind. And when I used to walk around in my bad areas, I knew, by the way, which small alleys, gullies, has drug dealings happening, prostitution's happening, fights, gangs. I knew that growing up in my area, just like the movies. And I used to think, one day, when I become a police officer, I'm going to clean all you up. I'm going to arrest you all. That's the dream that I used to love this actor called Amitabh Bachchan in the 80s. And he was like, I looked up to...
The angry young man.
Yeah. I was like, I'm going to clean it all up. I'm going to clean it. Yeah. So I did that. There were a lot of problems. First, I'm brown. There's no Indian police officers in those days. Okay? And there's nobody wants an Indian police officer. The public doesn't want it. Police doesn't want it. Nobody wants it. Okay? But I, as a young, was so naive. I just didn't even think of that. And every day and all that. So all I did was I ran for 5 kilometers every day. I exercised. I studied law. All the jobs that I took had to lead to that. In fact, and I was a bad student. Up to the grade 11, I was a bad student. In Toronto, passing grade is 50. And I would get 51, 52. When I became a police officer, then again, there's not acceptance by the white police officers. There was nobody. There was very little women, very few women. Where I went, there was no Indian, and it was white. So they would look at you differently. They may not assign you the case that is supposed to be, let's say, high profile. They'll take it themselves. They'll give you less, or if it's something that is not as sexy, they'll keep sending you to those. And then that. So my father gave me advice. I said to my father, I said, what, I love what I'm doing, but my own colleagues are not really warm and fuzzy, and they're not friends, but they're friends themselves. And I was missing that in the beginning, and I was lucky enough to find 1 or 2 people who were like that were close to me, and so I said to my father, what do I do? My father's like, here's what you do. You go every day before everybody else. When your shift ends, don't run out. Wait for at least 15 minutes. Ask people, do you need any help? Okay? And the third, he said, do double the work than the white police officers. If you do those 3 things, eventually somebody's going to know. And his thing was, for the police, was do double the work. So if one police officer is doing 10 occurrences, let's say, or whatever, 10 charges or 10 whatever, you do 20. And you don't go there with 20 and say, here, I did 20, I'm better than you. No. He said, go there and just submit your paperwork, do all the stuff, have a good attitude, and then just walk away. And then before you leave, you say to them, do you need help? And I thought it was a crazy idea actually in the beginning, because I thought, wait a minute, I'm going to work for free in the 15 minutes before, work for free 15 minutes after. What if after 15 minutes somebody says, yeah, I need help? What if, I want them to say no. Because what if they say yes?
That's where we say that at times your elders, your wise critics, your mentors can see things that you cannot see.
Absolutely.
Right? Sunil, you mentioned about, as much as you did not know, it's known as visualization. What is it that visualization has to do with success and the accomplishment that you accomplish in your life? What's the direct, indirect connection there?
So when I was doing it in those days, I had no idea. Then later on in the year, as I became a trainer, I studied many, many books. Law of Attraction, The Secret, and Science of Getting Rich, Think and Grow Rich, Tony, some of the biggest minds I started studying. What I realized is that we actually do become who we think about on a consistent basis. We actually do it.
We become who we think about ourselves on a consistent basis.
And thoughts are things. Gee, I never thought of that. Like, this phone was a thought in somebody's mind before it became a thing. So if I come home and keep thinking about I'm lazy, I can't do this, I'm poor, I'm not good, then that's what you're going to get. If I keep thinking about what I want and I dream it and I feel it and I see it and I have no doubt that that's going to happen, then the entire universe, a signal is sent out to the universe, to God, to say, that's a way of communicating with God. And then God is saying, this guy, this is what he needs. That's the language that we're speaking, which is the visualization, affirmations, and all that. So when we're visualizing, we're making a movie in which, when you make a movie, you can be a side hero or you can be the main hero. Most of us are side heroes if we're not successful, even in our own movies. But we need to be a main hero in our own movies, because, and not what we are, but what we want to be is the movie that we need to make.
You also spoke about a concept that, are you a liability for yourself or are you an asset for yourself? Tell me about that, because I think that there are some parallels that we can draw from what you just spoke about.
So with law of attraction, you attract what you want. By action is how you receive it. Very important.
You receive it.
Yes.
Okay.
By law of attraction, a right mentor, for example, comes into your life. So you've attracted that mentor. Or by law of attraction is how you attract opportunities in your life. And eventually the opportunities, people, connections come into you. But by action, the right actions, by immediate action, is how you receive it. So law of attraction itself does not make you wealthy. Action itself does not make you wealthy, but both of them do. So right thinking, dreaming, and right action that aligns with that, that's how we get it.
I'm not surprised, because on several occasions I've heard you speaking about the importance of action. I think you have been one of the evangelists that talks about that, how important it is to act, not just sit and dream.
That's right. That's right. And not only that, you see, if somebody has millions of dollars and an opportunity comes to them, and they always wanted to, let's say, attend an event, they wanted to hire a mentor, they wanted to go on a big vacation, they wanted to do whatever. See, for them, they can make action easier. They can do it. The action that I'm talking about is the quantum leap action that usually requires you to actually be fearful, to actually say, you know what, I don't have that money. So when I started into real estate, I'm like, okay, I'm putting a deal together for millions of dollars, don't have the money. If I had millions of dollars, it's a lot easier to take action. But if you don't have it, that's the action that actually takes you to the next level. So all big opportunities come to you when you're really not ready.
Yeah, it's like feel the fear and do it anyways.
Yes. And the opportunities come to you when you're not ready. Not when you're ready. Our schools teach us everything has to be ready before you start. Don't make any mistakes. Don't copy anybody. Don't think. Don't think. Thinking is the best way. That's who we are as human beings. So with law of attraction is how you attract this into your life. By action is how you take it. So when I became a police officer, I realized the lessons that my coaches in police were giving me, lessons from my father who gave me. And it took me about 2 years before the police force, the supervisors, the commanders said they had no choice but to notice me. And that is how I got the opportunity of becoming a police detective, police negotiator, platoon commander. And then what I said was,
You said police negotiator.
yes,
Wow. So can we dwell on this part?
sure.
Yeah, because I remember I was talking to Mr. Vivek Srivastava. He's an IPS officer. That's where I got introduced to this word called police negotiator.
Yeah.
Why don't you share one such episode that dawned on you?
Right. So first, the context. Context in Toronto police is that we, generally speaking, I'm talking about 99% of the time, we have to be polite. We have to call them sir. Even the bad guys, we call them sir. We are not. We don't beat people up and say, "Tell us what you did." For example, sometimes we watch a movie and people think.
So dignity, respect is not at all, should not be compromised.
No, and the attitude, a police officer's attitude. What we have been taught is that if I come into your life for whatever reason, for even 5 minutes, and if I mistreat you, you probably will remember that for the rest of your life.
You interact with mentors, you interact with business owners, you interact with entrepreneurs, you interact with the likes of people like Oprah Winfrey, for that matter, Grant Cardone, Tony Robbins you interact with. What, according to you, has been the common thread in all your interactions? What has been the basic desire of a human being?
Every human being deep down wants to be wanted, wants to be seen as that they matter, that they can make an impact, that they're not invisible, they're
To be
not,
seen, to be heard.
and to be respected and to be able to add value. A lot of our seniors, when they get into their 70s and 80s, a lot of them die because they feel that they are no longer important or nobody cares.
They're not longer relevant.
Yes. And when they feel like that, the best thing as a son or as a daughter, as what I do for my parents, is that I make them feel like that whatever they're doing now, it is so valuable that if it wasn't for them, I would not get it. When my mom called me yesterday from Canada, she said, "Beta khana khaya?" No, she asked me every time. And when I was younger, in my late 30s, I said, "Mom, I'm a police officer. I'm 35 years old. Of course I've eaten food. Why would you ask that? Why would I not eat food when I'm hungry?" But as I got older, I realized that's her love. That's her love language, right? So when she said, "Khana kha liya beta," मैंने कहा हाँ खाना खा लिया है और let me tell you what I ate. And you know what? It's not as good as yours. Okay? So I'm waiting when I show up. I want you to make this for me. And she's like, "I will make it for you, I promise." और क्या बनाऊं? If parents call you and say, "Beta, let me give you an advice," and you've heard this 100 times, and you know it's common sense, you know what you do? The best thing you do, you make it feel like that was the best advice that you just got.
That the first time you're receiving from them.
Yes, and you say, I finally got it today. I understand. Or something like, you're right, Dad. You're right. You know what? I should have done that. Even if you know it's wrong. You say, I'll think about it next time, okay? My father's like, sometimes he'll give me advice like, don't stay in 5-star hotel. I only stay in 5-star hotels. I cannot go to, because that's how I become. But my father's not like that, I know, even today.
Sunil, help me understand. We all have certain regrets when it comes to, especially with our parents. I have a regret that at times I don't treat my dad with the kind of respect that I should have. Not all the times. And it's very heavy. It's very heavy. Do you have that kind of guilt?
I do. My father is, I'm so happy my parents are still alive. And what the regrets that I have is that when I was growing up, I thought my mother was like the most important person on the planet. And my father was like the villain because he was the, punisher, and he was the one, mom's like, wait till your father gets home. Or a lot of times when he came home, he was tired and just wasn't in a good mood. We always thought that mom was better, mom and all that. But as I got older, I realized the bucket that the children and mom are sitting on is on the heads of the father. And we forgot him. We forgot him, right? He probably goes every day and works like crazy, comes home, and we never said to him, thank you.
I know what you're saying. I go through that guilt at times with my dad.
Is your dad alive still? You can make it up right now. You can, even if your father, by the way, listeners, if your father's not here, you can actually make it up right now. Just write him a letter if he's not here. Write him a letter with all the stuff that you should have told him, and send it to him, and say, write it to him, and pretend you send it to God, and He's listening to you. You can do it now. But if your parents are still alive, and you have a chance, and you're lucky enough to have your parents alive, I want you to connect on a consistent basis with them. I spend 2 to 3 hours with them, and the only thing you're gonna do is listen to them.
Just listen to them.
Just listen. By the way, that's for everything: marriage, children. Everything. But parents, they're gonna repeat stuff. They're gonna repeat stuff that they repeated last week. They're gonna repeat that stuff they repeated 2 months ago. But you need to make it look like, okay, I got it. I understand. That's great. That's a good advice.
So let's shift gears, Sunil, here.
We went into a lot of emotions.
No, which is, I think that's what genuine conversations are all about.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this podcast is not scripted, right? So that the people who are listening to us, it's coming straight from heart. So it's about for them to listen, learn, but more importantly, be inspired. Inspired to have. We talked about the word plurking. Inspired to plurk all over the world is really my message. In fact, on my deathbed, it should say plurk. Yeah, because if you do that, one day an idea came to me, word play and the work, and I combined it together. And I see so many people I mentor, so many people I train, and I ask them, do you love your job? And about 95% of them say no, they don't love their job. Then certain percent of them, they kind of like their job. They don't love it, but they kind of like it. And most of them hate it, but they say it pays the bill. That's it. So plurking is about doing what you love and pay the bill. Plurking is about loving the type of things that you do and have enough money you want and be successful. So you got to have both. Okay, and that's not really what we are brainwired to.
And I think that's one of the missions that you've been living with. How can you include the term plurking in people's life? Correct. With a mission that how they can be millionaires, right? That's what you're working towards.
Yes. And the word millionaire could be somebody who wants to make 100 millions and somebody wants to make $1 million, and that $1 million is great for a town that you live in or a village that you live in, and that's all you want. That's okay. The financial freedom is really important to me. And financial freedom is basically my expenses are 50,000 rupees. I make 100,000 rupees a month. Well, you're financially free. Yeah, you're financially free. But I have 50,000 expenses, but I want to be rich and I want to impact more lives. You're not going to be able to do it with the luck.
So help me understand, how did this shift happen, Sunil, in your life? And I've seen so many transitions happening in your life, right? You join police force. From there, from being a negotiator to a detective, and then moving on, and then again you pivoted.
Yes.
You became a full-time entrepreneur.
Yes.
What was that nudge that led you to walk on this path of being an entrepreneur? And then you became a teacher, you became a coach, you became a mentor, you became a author, and the list goes on.
Well, I wish there was a sexy story, but the truth is, when my wife came to me and said we're going to have a divorce, I had to divorce either my wife or I had to divorce my work, profession that I loved. And when your back is against the wall and paycheck stops coming, and you're used to that, especially if you have a secure job that's been paying you every time, it was very tough. It was very tough. And I didn't know if I was going to do what. All I knew was somehow that if she doesn't like me doing work for any job, I have to do business where I can have time freedom.
Yeah.
And
So it all began with time freedom rather than financial freedom for you.
I needed to have both. And so I was looking every event that was happening. I would go to business events, franchise shows, real estate shows, anything where they can make money shows. I went, and one day I would be like, oh, I have to buy vending machines. The other day I was like, I'm going to open a coffee shop. The next day I'm like, I'm going to open up an Indian store.
It's like when you're still exploring what you should be
It
getting.
looked sexy because it was making money, or at least they were portraying to me that they're going to make money. And one day I opened up a newspaper, and a guy named Robert Allen, he's a real estate guru, he's become a very good friend. I brought him last year to India as well. He said, buy properties or invest in real estate, no money down. And I thought, what kind of stupid thing is that? I threw the paper away. And somehow I went to his event. And in my first time in my life, I paid $5,000 for a 3-day event. And that would be like $50,000 today to me in my idea what it is today. $55,000, because I hadn't given $50 before in my self-education. $5,000 was a lot of money to learn from somebody that I really didn't know. But I did. I'm glad I did that. And that is, once I took that focus.
The turning moment of your
Yes. Say, okay, I'm going to be in real estate. What I realized was, when I was talking to Abhishek Bachchan, and he said, we were having lunch together, and Abhishek Bachchan said, a lot of people don't know that most of our wealth, Bachchan's family, is in real estate. Sunil Shetty I was talking to. So most of it's in real estate. Like, it doesn't matter where the money comes from movies, from owning other things. But at the end of the day, how do they preserve and grow their wealth is they bought something. They bought a land, they bought a house, or something like that. So they either make, so I realized, and it's been said all over the world, 80% of the millionaires, self-made millionaires and multimillionaires come from real estate, whether it's full-time or part-time.
Yeah.
And most of my millionaires that I've helped, whether they're single mothers, whether they're young people, whether they're old people who said to me, one of them said to me, like in my late 60s, I'm a woman, I can't speak English properly, I'm just ready to be died, you know. And then I said, no, you're now gonna start living. And then she became, millionaire. She's of our club. She started training. She became a consultant. She started inspiring other women to make that happen. So what I realized was the turning point for me was, which is cliche, when you help others, it really does feel good. And there's nothing wrong with you making money helping others. In fact, God wants you to be rich. Because if you're not rich, you can't help.
Yeah.
Right? So your number one goal should be to help the entire humanity created by God, because you are the form of God. And when you're helping the humanity, it does not mean only others. It should include you.
Yeah, unless you can help yourself, you'll not be able to help others. You know, Sunil, I remember our conversation some 4 months back. I remember when we connected on Zoom. You shared one episode about your conversation with Oprah. Yes. That was also very similar to what you just mentioned about that one of the goals for us is to serve humanity. And unless we do that, we are not doing justice to our life. Tell me about that conversation. How did that shift your perspective towards life? And especially when it's coming from somebody like Oprah.
Yeah. See, first thing, Oprah Winfrey, probably, first of all, probably the most powerful, well-known women in the world.
Without a doubt.
She's a woman, she's black, and she came from really, really tough situation, okay? That is inspiring, right? So when I met her, she said to me that she has no doubt that she's one of the most powerful waves. And with her wave, she can help a lot of people. She has impacted a lot of people. But what she said was, she never ever has forgotten that her power as a wave comes from the ocean.
Wow.
And the ocean is the infinite power that we can't see sometimes, right? And so It is not one of the reason to live on this planet. It is probably the most important reason to live on this planet, actually. You know, when Deepak Chopra and I were flying in a private plane, we sat right across from each other and we talked about, you know, the way to live a life is to be in a state of joy. And I said to him, well, what is the state of joy? How do you get that? And he asked me to guess, and I guessed a lot of things. And at the end, he said, the best way to attain joy is to give another person joy, whatever that is. You know, somebody, with your life, with your relationships, and with your business. So if your job is to add massive value in money, then that's what you give, and that gives them joy, then that's it.
Yeah.
If you're an actor and that gives joy to people, then you're going to be a better actor and you're going to feel good, and they're going to feel good, and you're going to get those blessings.
Yeah. So, you know, Sunil, you have dealt with people from multi-dimensions.
Yes.
You know, we spoke about Abhishek Bachchan, the Bollywood celebrities that you interact with, interacting with individuals like Oprah, Anthony Robbins, Grant Cardone. You have a lot of mentees that you work with as well, who might be struggling in their day-to-day work, who might be struggling to build the business that they would like to build. In your experience, what has been the mindset of people who are either not been able to accomplish what they want to accomplish, make the kind of money that they would like to create, and those who have been able to jump across the fence and call themselves arrived, call themselves wealthy, call themselves accomplished and successful?
So, in my view, many people want to be successful, and many people, whether it's say or not, they want to be successful financially. And I would say that it should be your duty to become financially rich.
So are you saying that they don't want to be financially successful?
They want to be consciously, but subconsciously they're taught and trained not to be.
Okay, tell me more about that.
So
Consciously I would want to be. So if people would ask me and say, I want to be financially successful, but deep down,
they don't want to. Or they don't want to, or they feel like they don't deserve to, or they can't. And so the things that we've been brought up with, first is rich people are bad, poor people are good.
You mentioned that.
Yeah, I talked about that. The second is पाँव उतने फैलाओ जितनी चादर है, right? Third is don't fly too high.
I've heard all these, by the way.
Yes, of course you have. By the way, if somebody in America is listening to this, Canada is listening to this, Europe or India, they'll say the same thing. And yet we don't know each other. We weren't brought up together, but how come we were brought up with the same ideas? Money's the root of all evil. You may have heard of that. Money is bad. Or don't be greedy. Who defines greedy? If I live in a city and I'm making 1 lakh a month, and if I live in a town and I'm making 20,000 a month, is the person 1 lakh greedy to the 20,000?
Yeah.
What about the person who wants to make 1 crore? Is he greedy or she? So point here is, don't be greedy. But it actually, you know, because when I was becoming wealthy, I'm like, am I being greedy? You know, and then things like we were told, sales are no good. Salespersons are bad. Business is only for people if you can't do this, and this. And then business is like for the least amount of people, maybe they can't do anything, that's when they got into business. Whereas in the reality is, business is the way the world runs.
Yeah.
Okay? So don't make mistakes. You know, what if I lose my money? You know, don't lend money to your family.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then they come from Bible or religious leaders. That's even deeper. So if you look at when I was younger, all the sadhus, religious leaders that we used to interact with, they were poor, and they used to say, "Beta, don't be lalchi, don't be greedy."
Made money themselves, and then they're advising us.
Yes, but we listen to them from the age. When we look at our parents, their position of power. When we listen to, my parents will say, listen to this teacher. Well, we listen to that teacher. My parents would say, listen to this pundit, we listen to that pundit. Now, at the young age, we listen to them, we believe it.
And we are being conditioned.
We conditioned, and we've been like a song that keeps repeating itself into our subconscious mind. So now, if there's a fight between conscious mind and subconscious mind, 100% of the time, at least 99.9999% of the time, subconscious wins. All the time. So all we have to do is, when we're older, realize that we've been given the wrong operating system. The blueprint is wrong.
This is so beautiful.
And the software that has been installed into our computer is actually at fault.
So what I'm listening is, there is always a fight going on between your intentions, your conscious thoughts, and your unconscious beliefs. And in this fight, the chances are very high that your subconscious beliefs are going to win over your intentions and your conscious thoughts.
Even skills, even education, even if you had all that stuff, and if by mistake you get and your conscious mind wins, it'll be temporarily. Even if today somebody whose subconscious mind is set up that they are broke, let's say they win a lottery, let's say they did something and they bought a stock or real estate and they made crore rupees, they will lose it.
Because the subconscious mind is not supporting them. It's not supporting to nurture the system that they have been blessed with.
That's right. And we are a computer. The computer will only operate with the software that's been installed. And software is, installed into our phones is by some scientist. Software installed into us is by our upbringing, our environment, our parenting, our background, what we heard our parents, that our parents were fighting about money. They would say money's not important, but then they only fight about money. If somebody saw divorces, the only thing they saw was they were fighting about money. Mother and father is just talking about money. And money's root of all evil, then they'll say, oh, money's not important, but then they'll tell you, go become a doctor so you can make money. So it's those things that we need to. So there's only really two ways when you become an adult, you can actually change your software in order to change your outcome. One is hypnosis. So there are, especially today, you can buy online hypnosis program for almost anything. I have a hypnosis program that I give to my members. It's called How to Attract Millions. And all you do is for 20 minutes, put it in your ears, don't do anything, and there's subconscious messages that bypass your conscious mind with affirmations, with a different type of music, and they go directly into your subconscious mind. And if you listen to it for, let's say, 60 days, you all of a sudden start attracting opportunity which you never saw.
And Sunil, I understand that you have written a book around that as well.
Yes.
Is my understanding right?
I have authored about 9 books, and of the 9, 7 of them have become bestsellers. And they're on real estate, they're on mindset, how to build $1 million mindset, entrepreneurship, cash flow, plurking that we talked about, wealth, secret to wealth. And the idea there is, if people want to become wealthy, skills are very, very important. You can't just say, I want to use law of attraction. You still need skills. What I'm saying is, mindset is first, then the skill will work. But if you have really big skills, then even if you make $1 million a year, you're going to spend $1 million a year. So you're not rich. You're going to be living paycheck to paycheck. You're going to live paycheck to paycheck. So that's basically my goal in my life. I'm turning 56, and my goal is to actually, whether you are a cameraman who's recording this right now, whether you're a marketer, whether it's somebody like you, whether it's a real estate investor, whether it's a housewife, whether it's whatever it is.
Irrespective of where you are in your life.
I want you to plurk and figure out what that plurking is for you. Is plurking having fun and making 50 lakh rupees a month? Then nobody should tell you that you're greedy. It's your goal, you know. And second thing to realize is that never ever ever say things like, I'm not trying to sell you, or never ever say salespeople are bad, or when salespeople call you and you say, no, I never say salespeople are bad. Then phone call comes and salesperson says, sir, I want to sell this to you. No, be rude to them. Because now you're practicing.
Yeah.
They have a job. Now, everybody's selling.
Everyone is selling.
Everybody. You parent, you're selling to your children how to eat better and how to grow better.
Yeah.
If you got a job, then you sold yourself to the employer.
Otherwise, you'll not be able to get that job.
You won't get the job. So selling. So biggest aspect is God sent us on this planet in His form. God wants entire humanity to win. You are the form of God. Therefore, when you are doing the work for God, then God is going to say, I got to give him more because he can help more. Yeah. And remember this. Selling is serving.
Wow.
People say serving is when you give food, when you donate time, when you do it. No, that's not only, that is also serving. That is a different level of serving. The highest level of serving is selling. If you don't sell to people, you can't serve them.
Of course.
And if I am thirsty and I'm walking on a deserted island, I'm thirsty, I have the water, and I can sell that water to somebody who's really thirsty. And that person has, they value this water 100 rupees, and I give them for 50 rupees. That means I'm doing them a favor by selling them.
The basic 1-2 philosophies of your life that have never let you down, that has always served you to grow personally, professionally, and become the person that you have become.
Number one is get up tomorrow and say, how can I add value to people in the way that I can? You cannot add value to everyone in many different ways. Just pick one or two things. If you can pick one, that's great. Or start with one, and when that becomes successful, maybe then you did, just like I did, real estate, then I became a public speaker, then I became a coach and a mentor, and then I became a brand expert, and then I became a monetization expert. But I became successful in one area, and then I added to that. Then I added to that. So I'm going to just give water, or I'm only going to do real estate, or I'm only going to teach people how to be healthy, how to eat better, how to have a better mindset, how to have a better mental status. Whatever you choose to do, I'm going to have the best food from my restaurant to give it to people, and with a smile. So whatever that service is, you need to say, what am I doing today? Okay, I'm doing this. I'm doing good. All right. What can I do better? How can I add more value? More value equals more money coming to you. Beautiful. So number one.
Simple formula.
So that's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, figure out a formula where you are so overwhelmed that too many people are asking you for your services.
Okay, tell me more about this.
So if I have a restaurant, I want to be able to have full restaurant full and line outside. My mentoring program was telling you at the highest level, I will have like sometimes 50 people say, and I choose one. Why? Because now I can pick what I want. The problem comes when you don't have prospects or people and you have too much product and service. Then it doesn't work. So you got to focus and say, okay, what is it that I can do right now? What can I do right now that is going to double the number of prospects, or triple, or 10 times, or 100 times, depending upon where you are. First thing start. Without that, nothing works. So that's basically what we call the marketing part. Marketing. And the marketing, part is basically advertising on social media, Facebook, Instagram, other places. You can these days target the people that you want. You can do what you're doing, where you're helping people for free through podcasts, and then the right people will come to you and say, "We learned a lot, and Gauravji, what is it that I can do with you to go to the next level?"
Yeah.
Okay. So the bigger the number of people that you attract, the more subscribers you'll have.
Yeah.
The more subscribers you have, more collaborations you'll have. That's basically it. So now you got your formula of attracting people into your life. Once you attract them, you have to figure out when they come to you, do you have somebody, you or your team or salesperson, to say, you said you want this, we have it, We have why this is the best, and how would you like to pay? That's it. You become a magnet. And the stronger the magnet, the stronger the brand, the more people are willing to come to you.
Yeah.
So if I have a store and you have a store and your brand is bigger than mine, people will even pay you more.
Of course.
And more people will come to you. And that's what basically the brand building. And brand building is by the way for anyone.
Yeah.
It's not for big multi-billion-dollar corporations only. It's for chaiwala on the street.
Yeah.
It's the person who sells vegetables.
Yeah.
It's the person who sells multi-million-dollar coaching. Doesn't matter.
In fact, few days back I was doing some research on the branding part, and as you spoke about the chaiwala, we have Dolly Chaiwala in India. When Mr. Bill Gates, when he came to India, he made sure that he visited his stall and have a cup of tea from there. So I could resonate with that. Thank you so much, Sunilji, for sharing your wisdom. I look forward to interacting with you again.
Absolutely.
And extract wisdom from you.
Before I go, I always like to give gifts. If you're okay with it, I'd like to give the Plurking book,
Yeah.
where everybody can have access to it from doesn't matter what part of the world. We'll give them digital access to that book, and all they have to do is we'll just send you the information, and you can just. Before I finish off, I want people to plurk. I want people to know what they want, how much they want. I want them to know how to impact others, how to add value, and at the end of the day, never allow anyone on the planet to kill your dreams, including yourself.
Thank you so much, Sunil. Such a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. It was an absolute delight having Sunil on this podcast. And thank you so much to all of you who stayed with us for that long. As I told you, it was one of the finest conversations that I could have to have a deeper insight into the life of an individual who has transitioned from being so-called poor to somebody who could actually create wealth for himself and is on a mission to create 100 millionaires. Was the journey easy? Absolutely not. And by the way, what kind of mindset you need to get to where you want to be is something that I have learned. I would love to hear from you. What has been your key learning from this conversation? What assumptions, what subconscious beliefs are you going to challenge for yourself so that, as Sunil said, you can live a life that you deserve for yourself, that you desire for yourself, without allowing anyone to kill your dreams. I look forward to seeing you next week with yet another beautiful conversation with another thoughtful leader. Take care of yourself. Stay blessed. Stay tuned. Bye-bye.